A very good afternoon to all. Thank you to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. If you can put up the presentation. Thank you. Thank you. So I'll keep it short. What I would like to take this first 5 minutes is setting things in context. You have been hearing a lot about energy efficiency. You have been hearing about renewables. So these are different ideas, but where do they stand in the carbon management hierarchy? What you should target first? Is renewable the first thing to do? Do you take up energy efficiency in an ad hoc basis? So I will understand that. Some numbers from Bangladesh factories to set the context in terms of where the factories stand, and then we'll look at some of the global best practices. A quick word about Grant Thornton. I represent Grant Thornton, which is a global consulting firm. I'm from Grant Thornton, Bharat, from the climate and energy practice. And this team has done work with textile and R&D sector in India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam as well. Okay, let's come back to the topic. So you might have heard the topic carbon, GHG reduction, and SBTI, but all these things, they ultimately aim to reduce your GHG emissions. But what do you target first? Where do you begin your journey? A lot of the factories or mills in Bangladesh are new to this journey, and they're taking ad hoc steps. So for them, it's easy if I put this in a reverse pyramid. Assume the first level is where your total emissions are and how you reduce it step by step. So the first step is always avoid. If you can avoid your emission, that's the best way to mitigate it. And where do you start? You look at your process. Can I do certain modifications? Can I reuse a warm water bath for some other process? Can I look at tweaking the process in such a way that I require lesser energy? That's the first step and easiest step taken. Once you have done that, you have a process which you feel that can't be changed, and you have said that this is the process I need to follow. The next one is to minimize. That's where the energy efficiency comes in. And that's what you hear a lot from a lot of consultants and organizations, that this is the area where demand side efficiencies are to be improved. Once you have reduced and reached optimum energy consumption level, then you need to think, how can I make this clean? How can I move from, say, a natural gas to a lesser carbon intensive fuel or a renewable source? Once you have done all these steps, if you still have emissions, then you need to rely on offsets. And offsets are nothing but either carbon capture through technological means or through nature-based solutions. So this is the overall carbon management hierarchy. With this background, let me take you through some key numbers in Bangladesh, and then we'll look at solutions. So recently, through the IFC's PACT project, there were a number of factories which were participated in that. So I've picked up some numbers so that it makes sense. Just to put the numbers in context, Apparel Impact Institute gives a typical baseline number for wet processing plants, which is nothing but 14 kWh, units of electricity per kg of product processed. So where do factories in Bangladesh fall compared to that number? If you see study of 15 wet processing mills, roughly 40% of these are consuming way higher than 14, which means there is a substantial improvement potential. And what we did was we conducted a study to identify low-hanging fruits which are can be implemented in next 2 to 3 years max. We didn't look at state-of-the-art technology options, just low-hanging solutions which can be implemented. And if you see, the numbers are staggering. You can save up to 15 to 20%, depending upon where your baseline stands. And the correlation is very clear. The units which are consuming, which are having higher baseline, have higher saving potential. And the same holds good for the RMG sector as well. So these are last year's numbers. Again, looked at Apparel Impact Institute's typical baseline for a RMG garment factory, which is 3.15. Compare the 8 factories which we visited last year, roughly 50% of them are higher. And if you see, almost 2 of them are double the number where it should be, which is a substantially high number. And if I had time, I would have gone around and asked, why do you think the reason is for the first factory to have such a high number? But simply put, they have oversized everything. They expect huge jump in numbers, but for past 2 years, they have been running at about 25-30% of the capacity, which means oversized utilities, oversized boilers. Hence, as a result, you have a very high consumption, and here, as a result, the saving potential is substantially good. Again, these are low-hanging fruits. Now, the solutions can be categorized broadly into these 5 brackets. From easy going to difficult. So best operating practice is nothing but where you tweak your operations to obtain some savings. Retrofits are making minor changes. Replacement is getting equipment which is readily available within Bangladesh or from neighboring markets. These 3 are the ones which were considered in the previous slides, where I said saving potential is around 20%. Now, next is new age technologies and renewables. I'll take you through some of the examples. In auxiliary systems, I won't spend much time because I have been given only 10 minutes. But what I would like to say is that most of the factories have grown from a smaller size over the course of time to a bigger size. And what we have seen is that the growth has been sort of inorganic in the auxiliary systems, where you're seeing 1 compressor being increased to 5 compressors without any modification done in the distribution network. Same holds good for boilers. As a result, you're losing a lot on your distribution system, and the sizing is not proper. For example, typically for a 300 CFM compressor, you would need 1 meter cube receiver. We have seen people with 10,000 CFM also having just 2 meter cube. So that's why they tend to increase pressures and have higher challenges in terms of energy losses. And there are other solutions which I would leave back with you for look at. What I would speak of is process side solutions. Here again, modifications in your equipments, such as spindles or spinning pots. If you reduce the weight, the material, like conventionally spinning pots are steel materials. If you go for, let's say, a reinforced plastic or a carbon material, that would be 20-25% lighter, as a result, lower consumption. One very important observation we have had in almost all factories is that whenever a machine is not operating, the steam system, the hot water system, and the compressed air systems are not cut off, which means there are certain leakages which are happening. These are things which you could do right away. And there are other new solutions like ultrasonic enabled processing, vacuum impregnations, heavy squeezing. So these, if you adopt, these are technologies which can give you as high as 50% energy consumption reduction. A bit about renewables. As you move higher in the hierarchy and you implement all the best practices, what you can see is that renewables is the option to get higher level of GHG reductions. Now, if you see, Bangladesh is the 5th largest rice producer, and we expect them to grow higher in this list, which means there is a lot of biomass available. And typically, a rice plant would consume about 20-30% of the husk. Remaining husk is available as biomass, which is sold at a throwaway price. If I use this biomass and say set up a central gasification plant, run an engine to generate power, that's carbon neutral power for the factories. It can power up to 100 factories, wet processing mills in Bangladesh, if I assume 50% of rice husk is available for use. And there is another model which is sort of a decentralized model. Let's say you have a group of factories in a particular location. You procure this biomass, rice husk, and then use this rice husk to burn directly, combust directly in a boiler, and also have a buyer at a higher pressure so that you can have a condensing turbine which can generate power as well. So this works well as a carbon reduction strategy. And the final thing I wanted to speak of, which is touched upon by a lot of speakers earlier, is electrification. Um, be it any industry, any country globally, ultimately beyond 2040, everybody is looking at electrification as the final solution. And if you see, there are each process in textile sector has electrification options, and these options are in silos proven in many countries already, including boilers and heat pumps and for heat setting or mercerizing. There are multiple options. All of these are implemented, but none of them have been done in a single factory, which presents a huge solution option for the future. A country like Bangladesh can easily look at renewable resources. I would just take 10 seconds to say that a lot of talk is that there's not enough land for put sufficient solar power, but we are not talking of offshore wind. There is a decent potential up to 150 gigawatts, which is not being tapped, not been utilized yet. Hypothetically, if I utilize that by in next 10 years, that provides sufficient power to power most of the factories which are running now. I would rest with this. There are a lot of good practical examples, not just from Bangladesh, India, but beyond available. Would be happy to connect with anyone offline. Thank you.